Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, a comedy show that looks and laughs at UK politics. This week we'll be looking at the Conservative Party conference. Now, all the talk last week was about the Labour Party and their leader Keir Starmer, and about their taking of gifts and donations, and I'm guessing that the Tories were feeling a bit left out. Don't worry, we've got your back. So, a quick recap. David Cameron and his missus Sam Cam took money from a Tory donor for clothes in 2009. Now you're probably thinking, how come we didn't hear about this? Because pigfucker Poshboy didn't declare it. Oops. Then there's Boris Johnson, who else, holding up in some £10 million pad owned by Andrew Griffith. No, that's Andrew Griffith, the Conservative MP. It's a very common name. No, I'm talking about the other Andrew Griffith. The Andrew Griffith who was Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operating Officer at the totally impartial Sky. Can we get a picture of him up, please? Thank you. So anyway, he stayed there before becoming Prime Minister and was visited by Jacob Rees-Mogg, Matt Hancock and Gavin Williamson, where they all had gay sex together. No, of course I don't know that, but that's only because there was a super injunction in place, which means even if there was, then I'm not allowed to tell you that there is. Anyway, this was all a long time ago, and the one thing we can now say is that the Tories have cleaned up their act. Oh, I beg your pardon, I meant to say cleaned up. Kemi Badenoch, more Truss than Thatcher, has been staying at the home of one Neil Record while she gets the campaign up and running. Neil is a Conservative Party donor and gave Kemi Badenoch £10,000 in July this year towards her campaign, and was also the chair of the Institute of Economic Affairs, who are linked with Liz Truss, told you, and is the current chair of Net Zero Watch, who are basically climate deniers. And in his spare time, Neil likes to find people willing to adopt homeless kittens. I might have made one of those facts up. Tom Tugendhat, another contender for Top Con, has also been doing rather well on the donations front. Some £150,000 registered last month. They include a company called Blue WV Limited, who despite only becoming a company last November, were able to hand over £20,000 to Tom. I imagine with a turnover like that, you'd be pretty interested in what they do. Yes, so would I. But unfortunately, one look at the Company House website tells you that this is a company more vague than a Boris Johnson Brexit deal. And speaking of Conservative leadership candidates being given money from questionable sources, Robert Jenrick was handed £75,000 from a company that, well...
You've criticised Labour over donations, but we've noticed that you've received £75,000 over the past few months from a donor registered in the British Virgin Islands, a company called The Spot Fitness. Who are they?
As I understand it, this is a fitness company that operates in the UK. It's a perfectly legal and valid donation. And
who owns the company and why are they giving you money?
Well, the owners of the company are set out on Company's House in the normal way.
Are you absolutely confident that you know where that comes from and what the person who gave it wants in return?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's normal for companies as well as individuals to donate to a political party. It's a perfectly legitimate business. It's very normal for political parties and campaigns to take donations.
No, I don't know anything about them. I met a man under a bridge and was told not to use names, handed a brown envelope with cash in it and sent on my way. You know, the normal, completely legal way these things are done.
A company that has no employees, has never made a profit, has more than £300,000 worth of debt.
No wonder. They're giving this guy 75 grand and they're not going to see that money again. But for all the talk of they're all the same, there is one major difference between Labour and the Tories.
Keir Starmer paid back £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality.
Well, fair play, Sir Keir. I mean, you're keeping the other 100k and everybody else in the Labour Party is keeping their stuff, but handing back £6,000 is a start and a finish. The Conservative Party conference was the first since the massive general election defeat, but it didn't feel like a funeral. If anything, it felt like the party was in denial. I mean, some more than others.
Hello, Mr. Truss, Sky News. Why do you think the contenders should listen to anything you have to say, given the disaster of your premiership? What do you think? Do you think any of it was your fault?
You're going to have to talk a little bit louder if you want to drown out the voices in her head. Yes, I did do the same joke last week. Liz was in a hurry though. She had to go and find out what happened to her career. Then, onto the stage. And this was probably the most anticipated interview of the week, much to the annoyance of serious Tories who were just hoping she would stay at home. Any home. Doesn't even have to be hers.
Justine, pleased to see and hear from Liz Truss.
I mean, frankly, it's astonishing that she's even here. You know, I'm staggered by the fact that there are any people in the party that still take Liz Truss seriously.
People lined up round the block to take a look at the shortest serving PM outlasted by a lettuce and collapsing the economy, putting everyone's cost up. You could say it was a bit of mortgage fascination. Anyway, Liz had a lot to say.
Makes me very, very sad because I hate to see our country in the situation it's in. Ironically, although Britain voted to leave the European Union, our economy has become more of a European-style economy. I think we're already in socialism.
This is it.
Socialism. We're already a socialist country.
Right.
I mean, I just think these so-called left-wing comedians just aren't funny.
It's not easy putting all this stuff together, you know. Being funny isn't easy. I bet you can't be this funny. Go on. Let's see you being this funny, Liz Truss.
And they've been pushing their woke agenda through our schools, through our campuses, and even in our corporations.
The left have, in the same way as they sort of say, you know, government was trying to abolish the forest.
We've got this huge sort of woke problem that is infecting everything from sports teams to schools. But I do have in my possession a Liberty Bell showerhead, which is an exact replica of the showerhead that President Reagan has in his ranch in California.
The naughtiest thing you've ever done.
We've got a new kind of economics now in the West. It's called wokeonomics.
Stop. Great to see you. Your thoughts.
Great to see you. And here's my new book. I'll just get it up. Sorry, I'll get it up front. There we are.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Very good to see you.
Well, Liz Truss launching her campaign this morning. Welcome to Central Lobby here in the Palace of Westminster.
I bow to the Queen of Accidental Comedy. OK, so as an admittedly brief occupier to the political top job, who would Liz like to throw her back in behind?
So far, I haven't seen any of the candidates really acknowledge how bad things are in the country as a whole, and frankly for the Conservative Party. So I think there's been a bit of Panglossian, all we need is to unite, all we need to do is show competence, and we will be ushered back into office.
Yes, I had to look it up too. Aha! Take that, Jen Tugendockley. Liz the lettuce, shortest serving Prime Minister in history, who wrecked the economy in less time than it takes to eat a BLT, and is now saying that the economy would have been better with her in charge, that she would have won the election, and that the world was safer with Trump in charge, is calling you lot delusional. But she wasn't the only one looking a little bit lost after being given their marching orders by the great British public. Now, I'm going to show you a video, but I need you to promise not to laugh, okay? No laughing.
It's been hard. Look, I'll be frank. Look, it was nearly, 3 months now, and I'm still without a job, right?
What did I just say? That was ex-Tory MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, Jonathan Tarzan Friend Gullis.
You were
a teacher before.
I was a teacher before, and obviously I've applied for a few jobs, and sadly not even had an interview yet. So being a Conservative was something that was treated with disdain, and I do think there's a lot of schools that will see who I used to be, represent, and maybe my views, which they may not like.
Views like this one, maybe.
Woke warrior teachers think it's acceptable to push extremist nonsense onto pupils such as white privilege. And whilst I am a huge admirer of the incredible work teachers do, they are sadly being cajoled by barren bosses in unions like the Not Education Union, led by Bolshevik Balsen and Commie Courtney.
And to add to the oh-so-long list of returning heroes, villains, Steve, Brexit hardman, where did that nickname come from? Baker, another ex-MP, where the public called time on this.
Life as an ex-MP, Steve, is it liberating? Is it better?
It's great, yeah, it's great. And actually, I'm glad I lost rather than walking away. So I've put together a portfolio of business interests, and that's going through clearance. But yeah, it's great. And my life's rapidly improving, as I said it would. And
you know what? I'm happy for you, Steve. Genuinely, I'm not a bad person, which is why I wanted to see the same joy that you're experiencing spread to the other 121 Conservative MPs and 5 Reform MPs. And how could we forget Nadine Dorries, who spoke out against Kemi Badenoch at drinks at a breakfast function? Start early, Nadine.
One of the 3 men have acted with integrity. They supported the government, both Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. None of them were plotters. They all knew that, to remove a Prime Minister that the public had just elected, and I'm talking about Boris Johnson, with an 80-seat majority and a bigger percentage of the vote share than Tony Blair, they knew that beyond there lay madness. Look at the people who are supporting Kemi Badenoch today. Who are they? They're the same people who were the plotters against Boris Johnson. And loyalty is very important. It's the #1 quality that any candidate should have, as far as I'm concerned.
Time, gentlemen and ladies. Then there was Jacob Rees, a hedge fund is not just for Christmas, Mog.
We've bought in to the language of equality. Now, I hope our distinguished chairman is a chairman, not a chair. The chair was what I was sitting on. Do you want my very brief lecture? My very brief lecture on the word man. If you go back to the Anglo-Saxon, there were were-men and woe-men. The man bit means people. And where is the last remaining vestige of the word were? Werewolf. Chair, where, chairman?
What the bloody hell are you talking about? Where, chair, where? I think after all that, it should be where's your nurse? But of all those that have struggled with their return to civilian life, surely no individual encapsulates this sad and desperate plight like our former shortest-serving Prime Minister, as opposed to the shortest Prime Minister who turned up on the Saturday and left on the Sunday. Honestly, I've seen vegetables last longer. Oh, sorry, Liz. So let's have a look at the candidates. First up, an ex-Equalities Minister who doesn't believe all cultures are equal. It's a woman with a mouth so big she could fit both feet in it, Kemi Badenoch. And Kemi found herself in the firing line over comments about maternity pay she made a couple of years ago. So, could that harm her chances?
Has the maternity row damaged you, Kemi?
I don't know what maternity row you're talking about. I have given a statement and said that maternity pay is important.
Don't know what you're talking about, Gav. All I said was maternity pay is important. That's it. I didn't say anything else.
So maternity pay varies depending on who you work for, but it is a function, where it's statutory maternity pay, it is a function of tax. Tax comes from people who are working. We're taking from one group of people and giving to another. This, in my view, is excessive.
Ah, Kemi, you really should have kept mum. But this was a 4-day conference, plenty of time for another gaffe.
It is not all civil servants. I don't want people to get me wrong. There's about 5 to 10% of them who are very, very bad. Should be in prison bad. Leaking official secrets, undermining their ministers, telling, agitating. I had some of it in my department, usually union-led.
Now, setting aside jailing civil servants for basically failing to agree with whatever barking mad plan you've got in place that week is morally and legally questionable, there are over 500,000 civil servants in the UK. So, jailing 10% would be 50,000. Where exactly are we going to put them all? OK, next up is the former Defence Secretary, James, my name sarcastic, Cleverly, who took this opportunity to take a swipe at Keir Starmer's Labour Party for handing over the Chagos Islands, but failed to mention that it was the Conservative government that put this in motion when negotiations were started in 2022. In fact, we can hear from the man who was Defence Secretary at the time, one James Cleverly.
Of constructive negotiations on the exercise of sovereignty over the British Indian Ocean territory and the Chagos Archipelago. Negotiations are ongoing. While the negotiations are between the UK and Mauritius, we are very conscious of the Chagosian communities, and we will keep them in the forefront of our minds throughout this negotiating process.
So let's hear some of his rousing speech to the Tory party faithful.
And Reform can't. They're just a pale imitation of our great party.
Pale, as in white? I think Reform would probably take that as a compliment.
And compare that with what we saw at the Labour Party conference just last week. A party drunk on power who lied to the British people.
Yes, that really is James Cleverly of the Conservative Party, who had lockdown parties at number 10 during COVID, accusing the Labour Party of being drunk on power and of lying to the British public. He's got so much brass neck he could double as a tuba. Still, say what you like about James Cleverly. Next is Tom Tugendhat. Quite honestly, a fairly rational bloke, so no chance for him then. Although he still has his moments.
We all know that this country cannot afford Labour. You can't afford Labour, I can't afford Labour, Lord Ali can't afford Labour.
But top of the piles and the man looking like he's going to goose step right into the job, Robert Cartoons Are for Kids, Jenrick.
Wahbi Mohammed, a man born in Somalia who aided the plot to blow up the London Underground. Akindoyin Akinshipe, born in Nigeria, who raped a 13-year-old girl. Murad Mustafawi, an Algerian who recruited for ISIS in Edinburgh. A Ugandan, who we only know as ZM, who beat a man to death in the back of an ambulance in London. What do these men have in common? They're just a few of the people the European Court of Human Rights has stopped us from deporting. The court is also why illegal migration is out of control. It's created an arsenal of rights for illegal migrants that are used to gum up our courts and prevent their removal. Our special forces are killing rather than capturing terrorists because our lawyers tell us that if they're caught, the European Court will set them free.
That was Robert Jenrick in a suit shouting in a field about the SES killing brown people. And you have to say, that's the man who knows his target audience. Rob the Knob is in fact the only one of the candidates talking about leaving the ECHR.
So the choice is leave or remain. Leave and get foreign terrorists and criminals off our streets, end illegal migration, finish what Brexit started and restore sovereignty to our people and our parliament. And the nation of Magna Carta, habeas corpus, the Bill of Rights, protecting and enhancing our own freedoms, or remain and let the madness continue. So I'm for leave.
Because the last leave vote worked out so well?
Because what's her middle name? It is Margaret Thatcher. It's not, it's Thatcher. It's Thatcher. She was born the year that Margaret Thatcher died.
What a lovely story. I'm sure once he passes off this mortal coil to go down to meet his maker, Robert will have people naming stuff after him, like, oh, look out, don't step in that Jenrick. Honestly, why can't people clean up after their dogs? One of the more unusual fringe events at the Conservative Party conference was a Breed for Britain discussion. And it's as creepy as it sounds, where men sat and listened to three men, and one questioning her life choices that got her to this position, woman, about how to get women to have more children. I don't know what they came up with. Maybe a picture of a naked King Charles draped in the Union Jack riding a racist line to get the woman in your life in the mood. Or, and I'm just going to put this out there, maybe not calling it Breed for Britain. Of course, while these four represent the future, God help them, of the Conservative Party, the last week saw some of those that had gone before. Liz Truss we've already covered. Rishi Sunak came on Saturday, left on Sunday, very much reflecting his commitment to the job. But there was still a sweaty, bloated, bumbling shadow hanging over the conference. Boris Breeding for Britain Johnson was busy looking after his number one priority, himself.
Boris Johnson's autobiography is helpfully being serialised in the Daily Mail just in time to overshadow the events here.
Bearing in mind, though, that this is Shaggy's memoirs, it should have been called It Wasn't Me.
Let's talk about Brexit. Is, as you say, a defining part of your legacy. Millions of people put their faith in you, and then it was chaos afterwards, as you acknowledge in your book. And you blame a lot of people for that. You blame David Cameron, you blame Theresa May later, you blame the EU. The one person you don't blame is you, and people will find that amazing. You told us that we should do this, and you hadn't devoted any serious thought to what came next.
Come on. So I wanted to win an argument.
Do you accept that everyone watching this programme is poorer now as a result of Brexit and is likely to be poorer for the foreseeable future because of Brexit.
No, I certainly don't.
Yes. And here is your private secretary writing to over 100 people, inviting them to a party in the Downing Street Garden.
Sorry, hang on
and
a second.
People can't understand why you wouldn't be paralytically apologetic about that.
Because, and actually, I was at the time. If you remember what happened.
But now you're saying, oh, it wasn't a big deal. I shouldn't have apologised.
Well, if you look at the reason the Downing Street Garden was used was because it was thought to be a much safer environment, and we had.
I've got to press this. There were stories of drunkenness, people, physical altercations,
yes,
and I'm like, I can't.
There were stories. There were stories. There were, Tom. Right. Were those stories substantiated? Why don't you tell our viewers who investigated it?
I don't want to go down the avenue. It was Sue Gray.
And who is? Just to remind our viewers who Sue Gray is.
Sue Gray is a leading civil servant.
What post does she currently hold?
We're not going down this road.
Why not?
Thank you all so much for watching, and if you have enjoyed this video, then please subscribe, like, share, and hit all the notifications bell, and I'll see you all next week. Take care.